bullshit.
Okay, fine. To keep talking about uh,
all right. So
Palpatine's penis.
With there's a comic that's from the Marvel books. It's really recent, so it's canon. And there's like a flashback where a guy is looking through time with the Force and sees Emperor Palpatine using the fucking Sith magic shit to impregnate Shmi Skywalker. And he's like, this is an unnatural birth, and this is sinister as fuck. So he influenced the Force to create life within her. And he even kind of hints at that in dialogue in like the third movie. He's like, oh yeah, my old master, the fucking Sith guy, was so cool. He even knew how to like use the Force to create life. And there's like a big hologram in front of them that looks like a sperm going into an egg. And it is like symbolism. And so that means that Emperor Palpatine is basically Anakin's dad. And then is also, I think they tried to make a clone of him that would be like his successor, but that clone of Palpatine ended up like going rogue and was just like a guy and was like just a normal dude who was like young and didn't look like a weird creepy monster man. And that guy ended up having Rey with some lady, and then those people got assassinated.
Oh my god.
So they refer to him as her grandfather, because if they're going off of Boba Fett rules, like if you like have a clone that's your like younger than you can kind of just argue that it's your son. But so anyway, with that in mind, Kylo Ren and Rey are totally related, I think. I can't figure out the specifics of how. Okay, let's break down the family tree here, all right? So if like he would be like the grandfather of Luke and Leia as well, technically, Palpatine. So if Leia has a son, that means that that's Palpatine's great grandson. And that if okay, Darth Vader and the clone guy are on the same level, that means that Rey and Luke are cousins, and Rey and Leia are cousins. So what's your relationship to your mom's cousin? What's the term for that? Second cousin?
To your mom's? Yeah.
So your second cousin. So that would mean that Rey and Kylo Ren are second cousins. And they totally made out.
Thank you, J.J. Abrams.
I'm really glad that we're not talking about philosophy or politics right now.
William specifically said he didn't want to talk about that, so I knew that I could run off with this, and I knew where I would end up with it, is that Star Wars once again has unintentional incest relationships. Because they didn't fucking think about anything.
I brought the idea that Palpatine could be, is Anakin's dad a conversation with friends once, but I couldn't articulate because I didn't know the details. I just know that I remember you talking about it once. I'm like, oh, what you're saying makes sense, but I couldn't remember exactly what you said. So I just never fleshed out on the idea. I never articulated. So it's just I think he's his dad.
Keep that in mind. Second cousins. I can find the page from the Marvel comic that says it.
Oh, please.
The smuggler is the friend of the man. It is your duty to report the smuggler.
Let's see. Wow, I think it popped up right away as soon as I went looking for it.
Jeez, Xavier, making Star Wars into Game of Thrones. It's not making anything into anything. It's just, I feel like you made the connection by yourself. I think that's because they are. Star Wars is Game of Thrones, but it's it takes place in the future, but not really.
You're hurting my baby! Stop
And instead of like dragons, they have fucking spaceships. Right? Did I sum that up?
Yeah, here, check it out. This is the page. Now, I think because this, it's sending. Discord is being fucking slow. Come on! Oh, Discord's all frozen now. It's not even letting me send it.
Oh, hey, Shosha.
Here, it's so frozen. I will try to send it to you on like Messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me open that up.
There we go. Yeah, and I think because this came out, like a bunch of Star Wars like talking heads, like people in suits had to be like, well, technically, he just influenced the Force. He's not his father, and it's like your direct actions resulted in the pregnancy of a woman. I feel like we could just count it on it. Like, come on.
Definitely. It's like not even a technicality level. Like it's just
He
that's
influenced the metachlorians in her womb to create a baby. Like, it's, you know. I count it. He telepathically impregnated.
Into her.
Yeah, right. So like, fuck it, man.
In the
I know
words
they're gonna
of Red
split
Letter
hairs about it,
Media,
but they fucking brought it in.
raped
They
God.
suggested it.
in the
Everybody's
words of
told
Rich,
that once.
in the words of Rich Evans from Red Letter Media, Palpatine raped God.
Oh my God.
With the Force.
Yes.
There's multiple things that say that Palpatine did this, and you can like argue the technicality of the action does not necessarily mean that, but we
But
know
you're fucking wrong.
you're wrong, and everyone
wrong.
at Lucasfilm trying to pretend that this is a different thing now that the Rey and Kylo Ren thing has been brought
They're
into
wrong.
question.
And not
They're
only are
just
they wrong, they're
backpedaling.
delusional.
You fucking
They're delusional
you-
and they belong in an asylum.
Your canon is ruined now. You've done this to yourself.
You gotta love how J.J. Abrams are. Like not movies, like comic books and all the new stuff.
I've said
Everything
this
that isn't
before,
that,
and I'll say it
non-canon.
again.
After he did all of that, he's like complaining about how there's no source material for him to like work off of. Right
I've
after
said
he made
this
like all
before.
the legends, everything like that, just non-canon.
Well, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. J.J. Abrams didn't make a movie. He just wrote fan fiction.
You can say that
He
about
wrote one fan fiction and then let another guy come in and make another fan fiction that was completely disconnected, and then he had to come back and make a third fan fiction that connected the two previous ones that were made from completely different sensibilities that had nothing to do with each other. And then it just turned into this big clusterfuck.
MCU.
No. Well, because the MCU plans shit ahead so that there's kind of like, you know, a direction.
I mean,
Well, you could
say
argue
that.
about the results and the quality, but you can't argue that they definitely make a concerted effort to try to plan. While as with this whole Star
they
Wars
try
trilogy,
to plan.
the
I don't
whole
think
Star Wars
a lot-
trilogy we got was just the result of fucking no plan at all. Like Ryan Johnson was like, yeah, they just fucking didn't tell me what was gonna happen next, so I just had to just come up with it. And it was cool that he had like
That's
so much
how
creative
sequels
say.
are, you know? That's how sequels have been historically for the vast majority of time, is there's one movie, okay, let's write another one and see where it goes. There's absolutely nothing weird about
Yeah, but why would you do that with a trilogy that's assured to have sequels?
I mean, that's
know
what they
that
did,
there's
but that's what they did with the
directors
original
and
Are you
creative
trilogy.
visions on the
defending
thing.
J.J. Abrams coming up with a bunch of mysteries with no resolution? Because that's how we got lost.
No, I'm not. I'm not. This is just a tired debate, but I just find the
We all move
I'm saying that J.J. Abrams set Rian Johnson up for failure, and everyone blaming Rian Johnson for the way things went is like not really taking into account the context of
Well,
things.
I'm also
He had nothing
of
to
the
go off
opinion that Rian Johnson didn't screw things up. So
you know what? After sitting down and rewatching all three of them recently, I don't like any of them. There's interesting ideas in what is it, Last Jedi, but it just doesn't really know what to do with all of them. It brings up a lot of stuff, but like the characters are spinning their wheels the whole movie. Like no one's accomplishing anything. It's like trying to be character driven, but a lot of the characters are just stubborn and not really going anywhere. And they kind of drop, like, the stuff that they do with Luke is really interesting, and I actually kind of think it's a cool idea to have, like, you know, here's the real Luke Skywalker who's a flawed person versus, like, the mythological, like, hero of the universe Luke Skywalker that everyone kind of imagines him to be. But then they just don't really go anywhere with that at least that I thought was interesting. And, like, that movie ends so weird, because there's, like, nothing for anyone to do. There's no direction. And there's that whole, you know, we've talked about this before, is the subversion of expectations. Is that it ends up trying so hard to surprise you that it ends up just being a little silly and, like, flaccid. Because the surprise is just, like, you know, instead of something really cool happening, here's, like, kind of the boring, flaccid thing happening.
okay, but I disagree on that too.
And then the next one is just like, what ideas do we keep and what do we cut? Because now we have two, like, completely different movies to follow up on that weirdly have, like, nothing to do with each other. And it's just, like, trying to be a sequel to both. And the pacing is insane because it'll, like, set up stuff and then pay it off 5 minutes later. That third one, Rise of Skywalker, is like a 7-hour TV show in an hour and a half. It's insane.
I think this was more fun when we were talking about and to think we started upon all of this by talking about Palpatine's penis.
By talking about all the incest that happens.
No,
in Star
we're
Wars.
specifically talking about Palpatine's penis.
I don't think it was specific.
Do you think it's like wrinkly and like?
I feel like you interpreted
do you
it as
think-
us talking.
Yes, it is.
Do you think it's wrinkly and melty like his face is?
Yes.
Like it's all like got the bumps on it?
Yes.
I feel like it would be that due to age as opposed to the shit that he did to himself. Like,
Well, because he got like struck by lightning that melted his skin.
it only like
No.
hit his. I feel like it.
Okay. Well, because here's the thing though, is if his penis had the same texture as like his forehead, where it's really bumpy, it might actually be kind of awesome.
What the fuck?
You know? Well, because you know, just the ridges. Yeah, have you ever seen like?
Have you ever seen it?
Like,
It would be that.
Have you ever seen like dildos that have like all the bumps all the way in? So it's just like a really crazy sensation. If his penis looks like his face, then it would be kind of like that. In which case, I can understand why Rey Skywalker inevitably existed. That's right, I'm taking this in the direction of saying that maybe Palpatine's penis is not scary at all, and is actually quite impressive.
Hello, 911.
Mom, take me home. I'm scared.
The smuggler is the
I'm
friend.
witnessing
Well,
assault and harassment.
It is
Because they brought that up without planning it again, and so they were like, yeah, oh yeah, he had a son who was Rey's father. And I think people started asking, so who in their right mind would have sex with Emperor Palpatine of their own volition? And then that question was too hard to answer, so they're like, no, the Rey's dad is a failed clone. Because they just couldn't figure out a legitimate answer for that.
Wanting an item from the service is forgivable. Must be you in the kitchen.
Becky's asking me if he can shoot lightning. What do you think? What's your take on that? Can he shoot lightning out of his dick?
No.
I think he could. I think he does that, like, you know what? I think he only gives a little bit of a zap near climax to make it really memorable. Like, just a little tiny.
I think we're getting a little too big territory, and I think Xavier's indulging himself a little too much, so...
Like, when he, you know, when he's, like, having sex with, like, the clone droid machine or whatever.
The Grave Encounters is a really cool movie
Yeah, Grave Encounters is a cool movie. I enjoy I quite enjoy I think it's, like, the best that the found footage, genre has to offer in terms of horror, and I showed it to everyone the other day. I'm glad that they really liked it. I was surprised that everyone liked it as much as they did. I showed it to you guys as a contrast to Paranormal Activity.
You were telling me about that way before, though.
Oh yeah.
I think it was also in response to me wanting to watch Paranormal Activity. Because I was asking you one night, hey, are you free to like watch a movie? And you said no, but like watch Grave Encounters instead.
Well, yeah, because like
I wanted to watch.
Paranormal Activity, after we sat down and watched it, I can confirm is just kind of boring because nothing happens the whole movie, and then it's scary for the last like 20 seconds.
There's some shit that happens that I, like kind of gets a rise out of you, like there's some jump scares, but it's not until like literally the final 10 seconds of the movie where you
when
really
it really
go,
has like
holy
an
shit,
atmosphere.
what the fuck?
Yeah, it has an atmosphere for like the final little bit of it, because the rest of it is just like, just the dill-hole boyfriend just swinging around the camera going, "No way, babe, we'll fight the ghosts
I can totally take
arm
a
wrestling.
I can rip his dick off and like feed it to dude.
This edible ain't shit, babe. I'll fuck up that ghost real good. I'm a big, strong man." And then the girlfriend
These
going,
edibles ain't
"You
shit," and then
fucking
checks the
stop,
footage.
you dumb piece of shit. And then at the end of the movie, I guess she like kills him or something.
She kills him. I find it interesting that the fifth movie goes back to the first movie.
Oh yeah,
There's a scene in the first movie where the girlfriend goes downstairs because she's like being possessed or whatever. It's something that happens sometimes. Where like she gets possessed by the ghost or something, and then she goes like on sleepwalking adventures after like standing in the room for quite a substantial amount of time, just doing nothing. She walks down to like the lower part of the house because it's a 2-story house. She goes into like the kitchen or something, and then all we hear is like her screaming. Then the boyfriend just like rushes downstairs, and like 2 seconds later, we see him like get thrown violently into the camera, and that's the thing that like got everybody. By the way, that's the
not everybody.
The really good thing. Oh fuck you. But
did it get you?
It got me. Yeah, it got me. It got a bunch of other people too. I feel like Xavier was saying not everybody like himself, and that's why I said fuck you. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
But the fifth movie goes back to that scene, and I got some context for that. And apparently the fifth movie is all about like time traveling, going back in time to like different.
It's not all about that. That just comes out of nowhere at the end.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, the fucking fifth movie is just about some like just guys in their neighborhood just dealing with ghosts, and then right at the end, they're like, "All right, let's go into this house where we think this is the source of the ghost shit," and then they time travel like just completely out of nowhere.
Oh, okay. But anyway, they go back to like the events of the first movie, like the same house and location and everything, and the guy ends up in the kitchen where we see the girlfriend
so
coming down.
that's what she was screaming at, is just
The
some
reason
random
why
dude
she
with a
screamed is
camera
because she saw him.
teleports
She
into
looked
her
at him for like a
kitchen.
quick second. The guy was so confused. He's like, "Hey, can you help me? Excuse me." The girlfriend looks at him, like not even phased.
goes,
and then
"Hello, imposter
moments
among
later,
us?"
she starts like screaming, and that's
Like,
when the boyfriend comes down.
screaming bloody murder, and then the boyfriend
Yeah.
shows up. He's like, "What the hell?"
And then
she
she
like
stabs
takes
him,
the
just, like,
opportunity to just
no
randomly
hesitation.
stab him
Stabs him, and then I guess she like pulls him back up the stairs and throws him towards the camera
with her ghost strength.
with her ghost strength. It was bizarre. It wasn't a terrible movie, the first one. It was okay.
I love how it fucking ruins itself, because you were watching that ending that was really scary, and you're like, "What is she screaming at?" And I said, "Oh, just some guy from the future showed up in the kitchen." And like, you guys thought I was joking, and then I was like,
I
"No,
don't think you
someone
were joking.
actually,
I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's stupid. I kinda
someone
understand.
actually time traveled into their kitchen." It's the
Yeah.
worst.
The PA movies are just, I don't know. If this is the
And
vibe
then-
of them going forward, which I've been told it is, I could see why it kind of like died out really quickly. Because I remember like back in 2012 or something, seeing a bunch of trailers for them. It's like, oh, Paranormal Activity, cinema's down, it's
Paranormal
fucking
Activity,
scary. Like they would show like all of these like paranormal encounters basically, like just things happening. You're like, what the fuck is happening? Like this kid is just like floating all by himself, and like this woman's being dragged by her feet, and she's screaming, and holy shit, it's scary. But if like all of them are like the first one, I can see why nobody was really interested in seeing them again.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Grave Encounters is fucking like
It was
horrific.
cool.
Like ruined
I
your
thought
day.
I was gonna be the one super phased by it, to like everybody in the group, because I'm not
So-
well with horror stuff.
So could you
I'm not accustomed to horror.
the
I'm not
audience,
very, like-
what this movie is?
I'm not very like.
Okay. Grave Encounters
Oh, let me
is
finish,
probably.
There's
Okay,
doing the
well,
thing
you go
again.
first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I lost my train of thought. Yeah.
Well, you're
I'll
saying
do that.
you're talking about like you thought.
Oh
you'd be
right, yeah.
affected
So
by
I'm
it,
not.
but
I'm
you weren't.
very like. I'm very accustomed to horror movies. I'm not very what's the word? Conditioned to them. And unlike everybody, a lot of people in the group, you know, because everybody like, kind of watches horror movies every now and then. They watch a lot of the intense stuff, the ones that I'm not very comfortable with, like gore and whatnot. And so, because I kind of have this like perception in my head that like a lot of horror movies, if not all of them, just utilize gore very heavily, I kind of stray away from it. Even like the psychological horror ones. So I don't really watch a lot of horror movies. And after Grave Encounters, like everybody was kind of shook. Surprisingly, except for me. I was kind of like, this is fucking dope. This is cool. I vibe with it. But you hear people like Josh, who's like, dude, I cannot sleep after seeing that shit. So we put in another movie, and we'll talk about it later if you guys want. But put in another movie. But like, it wasn't just Josh. It was like a bunch of other, another of our friends, and you know, I was just surprised that I wasn't the one who had that sort of reaction. I was just kind of like cool with it. I was chill.
So can
yeah.
so Xavier, can you now explain what the movie is about for those of us who have not seen it?
Okay, yeah. So, Grave Encounters is a found footage horror film, but I think it's like really effective and well made because it's from the perspective of like, here's footage from like 2001 of this ghost hunters type show called Grave Encounters. And it's before it's like in the fiction of the movie, it's before like Zach Baggins did like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures or any of those other shows. They were all rip-offs of this. This is the first show of that type. And during the 6th episode, they actually found some shit and it went crazy, and then the show like never made it to air, so no one knows about it. And so you're looking at a supercut of like 72 hours of footage from like one of the episodes of this Ghost Hunter type shows. And what's really funny about it is because it's the host and his crew are investigating like an old abandoned mental asylum, and the first like 20 minutes almost are more of like a comedy movie where it's like really taking the piss out of like just how fake those ghost hunter shows are, because he's like paying a guy who like has no idea what he's talking about to go, oh yeah, I saw a ghost right over there, I've worked here for 10 years, like, and then you know, or they got a guy who's like the psychic who's an expert. He's like really hamming it up for the camera. He's like, I sense a great sadness in this room. The spirits are very powerful. And then he just starts like talking like normal again, and they're just laughing between takes. Like, just really like, you know, satirizing kind of just the whole idea of it.
And then?
So it's cool because the characters aren't taking it seriously, and then when shit starts actually like going bad, it starts very subtly, where there's just like noises, or you'll just see like something kind of weird off in the distance of a shot or something. But the premise is that they're locking themselves in this old abandoned mental asylum for like a whole night, like 12 hours or something. right? And they just keep seeing weirder and weirder shit, and then eventually, like, one of their crew, like, just slips on a staircase and gets hurt, and they're like, alright, let's get out of here. And then they try to open the door to get out.
He gets pushed down.
Well, he gets pushed down by a ghost. Maybe, right? But then they try to escape, and, like, they can't escape because the mental asylum just goes on forever. Like, there's no exit anymore. The building just keeps expanding infinitely, like this weird alternate dimension, and all of the windows are barred and, like, sealed up tight, and the daylight never comes. It just stays pitch black outside the entire time. And so, like, what's supposed to be only 12 hours ends up being like 4 or 5 days, and it's just watching them unravel. They're just unraveling and going more and more insane as they just see more and more, like, fucked up stuff, and, like, you know, they're getting picked off one by one, and it's so good because it's like it builds a really great atmosphere, and it has a lot of just really, like, creepy stuff conceptually. And it doesn't rely on the typical, like, just here's a bunch of boring stuff, jump scare, boring stuff, jump scare, boring stuff, jump scare. Like, it really actually has the characters doing things, like they're proactive and, like, making plans and going for them, and they'll try this and it doesn't work, or they'll have this idea and maybe they make a little progress. It's not just a bunch of guys sitting around their house for, like, 15 days straight while a ghost gets more and more like silly each night until eventually it just throws one of them. It's everything the Paranormal activity movies, like, are not able to do by the limit of their scope, because it has sets and costumes and monsters and like a plot. It's good.
There was a scene that apparently they used in all the trailers that really got me.
Oh yeah.
So they're walking.
Yeah.
They're like exploring the hospital. They're like walking around the corridors because that's after the point they got lost. I think they're looking for their friend. Actually, no, they're looking for their friend, and they get lost, and they start searching all the rooms and hallways and all that. And at one point they see, like, just some girl in like a hospital gown. They're like, excuse me, hello, what's happening? Hello, like, they try to get her attention. She slowly turns around, initially looking confused, but as soon as she, like, looks at them for, like, a second or two, her face just, like, turns all demonic and shit, and it was, like, the greatest use of CGI. I love that so much. Apparently they used it in all the trailers. And, I'm gonna go on a side rant here. I don't like it when movies use, like, shots like these that are just very, like, cool and, whoa, holy shit, as, like, the main sort of, like, hook for their marketing, you know? Because when you go to watch the movie, you're like, oh, it's that scene from the trailers. It's no longer as impactful because you've already seen it. But it was a great scene. And I love the use of CGI. It was cool.
Was it?
And then the sequel came out and then kind of, like, ruined it.
I wanted to see that, but you guys are just like, no, it's not good, man.
We can see Grave Encounters 2, but I didn't want it to ruin the spooky mood, because, like, everyone was really freaked out by the first one, and I feel like the second one would have de-escalated that, because it's so stupid.
I wanted to watch one more movie, so, and it wasn't going to be Grave Encounters 2, because somebody wanted to watch that. So I put on a movie that I really liked that I saw recently called The Widows. And I describe it as the heist movie, but Xavier describes it as, like, a character drama movie with, like,
with a heist in it.
Subplot.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think was cool. I liked.
You can describe it either way. But I'm glad that it got a lot of the guys in our group who've never seen it before actually be on board with it. Because a lot of the movies that I want to watch are just movies that either everybody has seen, but it's really shitty movies that I haven't seen and I kind of want to see with a gang. And this was one of those movies that are just like, not a lot of people have seen it. It's a very underrated movie. I'm sure, like, no one in the chat has heard of it. Who haven't seen it.
Which is weird, because it has, like, this, like, fucking star-studded cast of, like really well-known people. But it's just one of those movies that completely flew under the radar.
I wasn't listening.
Widows.
It's called Widows.
Oh, it was a... Well, that's because it's an Oscar bait movie that didn't end up winning that many awards.
Shit, it's a really good movie.
I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's not like a favorite or anything, but I thought it was pretty good.
It's one of my favorites. I started making a list because I went on a movie watching binge. And I would watch movies, and the ones that I really like, the ones that I would watch again, I would just scribble them down. And so far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
If I recall, it was a movie that, yeah, it was a starring movie for it was an Oscar bait vehicle for Viola Davis, I think, right? She was in it.
Yeah.
83. I have 83 movies on this list that I would consider my favorites on account of whether I would watch them or not. 90% of them, maybe all of them, are like good movies that people like, generally would consider good. Some of them are, a lot of them are just ones that I would consider. But I showed the list to a few friends, and I kind of went online like. I mean, apparently, a lot of people like these movies just like as a general thing, so I'm really proud of that. I got good taste in movies. But I got 83 movies on that list and counting. Fuck, we stayed like one afternoon or one night or something, just like either you or it was you and a bunch of other people in our group because we were on call one night.
Well, you see the difference
listing
is
movies
that,
for me to watch.
Well, you see the difference is that I like movies that are bad, and you actually have taste.
But yeah, right. Remember that night, Xavier, where you and a bunch
Yes,
of
I
people
do
just
Kind
started
of
making a movie?
started talking about movies, and I had like a whole bunch of suggestions.
Yeah. I haven't seen.
You
a
watched
lot
a
of
few
them.
off of there.
I did.
watched a
I
couple.
went back and like I ticked them because I pinned the
To be fair, this is
or
also
the
how Couch Potatoes started back in the day.
Yeah.
Because there were just all these movies that like I hadn't seen that Xavier had seen. It was like, why don't we talk about it on a YouTube program?
A YouTube program where we explain our thoughts on various films.
And then it turned into, I feel like watching this weird random film, and maybe Xavier's seen it, and maybe Xavier hasn't.
Yeah.
Anybody who's
No.
watching here,
Hello, the people who are watching.
Anybody who's
like
watching,
it.
you may be cool. Maybe.
But you'll never be as cool as Doug Reisman.
so
What was the line
you know,
again?
I watched recently.
Doug
I watched.
Reisman. No, there's
This
a guy
guy
who
knows
knows how to do cool.
So recently, I watched and I wouldn't call it a movie. I would call it an extremely long video essay on Shudder, and that was there's a documentary all about like 80s horror on Shudder that's like 4 hours long, and I
I've been
spent
meaning
like
to check that out.
the past like 3 or 4 days just watching it like bit by bit.
How was it?
It was a little bit self-indulgent because it's clearly made by people. I mean, the cool thing about it is that it interviewed like basically anybody who was involved in 80s horror. So like Doug Bradley was involved, was interviewed by it. Joe Dante, the director of Nightmare on Elm Street, Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund, Kane Hodder.
Oh, Kane Hodder! I was gonna ask eventually.
He was in
if
it,
they talked about it. Kane Hodder is Jason Voorhees.
Except
He didn't play him in all the movies, but he was the best actor that did play him and played him the most often.
I also learned that this was like I also didn't know until until this that he wasn't the first actor to play Voorhees.
Oh yeah, Jason Voorhees. There was not really a lot of consistency with that character. You know, they would switch the actor every movie almost for a little while, and like the costume was never really consistent for a long stretch of time. There's even a whole there's 2 Friday the 13th movies where Jason Voorhees is not the killer, but they make you think it is, and it's actually someone else. And those are not even back to back.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the first one, and the first one doesn't have Jason in it. Spoilers.
Because the 5th one is because they kill Jason Voorhees in the 4th one, like just flat out kill him. And in the 5th one, it's a copycat killer who's dressed up as him, who's using the cover of Jason Voorhees to get revenge on him.
So they took a note from the Saw sequels in that.
Yeah, right? Where it's like, oh, it's not Jigsaw, it's Jigsaw's, like, friend from college who's dressed up as Jigsaw.
It's Jigsaw's college roommate.
That's so stupid.
That happens, like in almost all the Saw movies after the 2nd one. But, yeah, so, the reason Kane Hodder was valuable to that franchise is because, he was the one who, I mean, you know, Jason Voorhees has no dialogue and almost has really no character, but he was the only body actor who really went out of his way to give him character through his body language, which is kind of a feat in itself.
So there was a bit in the documentary, actually, where he talks about when he was filming Jason Goes to Manhattan in Times Square. He never took off the mask.
He never broke character.
When he was filming in public, because he didn't want to ruin the illusion for everybody who was watching the movie, or for the fans. Because this was back before there were such things as like set photos and people posting that stuff online and all that stuff.
Yeah, no one knew that they were making another Friday the 13th movie in the dead center of Manhattan. He was just standing around in Times Square, just like acting creepy, just staring at people and just walking around. It was great.
Jason Goes to New York sounds like the title of a sitcom.
It does. It sounds like a...
Well, the title is... Hold on. The title is Jason Takes Manhattan, which is even more sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, because I was just watching The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Takes Manhattan has a bit of like a sinister thing happening with it, as opposed to he just goes to Manhattan. Like there he is. It's like
Muppets hadn't done it. It would have maybe sounded sinister.
Maybe, but I don't know. I haven't seen much Muppets, so it sounds sinister, a little bit sinister to me.
Here's another cool thing about Kane Hodder is because he's trying to characterize Jason. They actually had a scene where Jason killed a dog in that movie, and he refused to film it because he said Jason doesn't kill animals, he only kills people. And I thought that was kind of cool.
One second.
What?
I think that's kind of cringe. I don't know.
Did he
I'm
leave?
assuming he had to go somewhere. I don't know. He hasn't muted.
On the face cam, he's still there, but that's delayed.
Well, it's delayed. Wow.
So how can I help you?
Are you there still? Oh, hello?
Yes.
I'd like,
So this documentary that I was talking about, it's not bad. It's just that I did feel that on the other hand, it was a bit sort of self-indulgent. Because it was this documentary about how, you know, how great 80s horror was. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, like, all these guys were in it. It's like, it's sort of just very sort of nostalgic.
Of course all these guys are gonna think it's great because they made this stuff.
And also they talked about, like, oh, modern horror is crap and blah, blah, blah. And it feels a little bit sort of that sort of nostalgia. But... It's not bad. Although I think I like it best when it's just like a here's all the cool horror movies you should watch sort of vibe, you know?
Yeah.
And that sort of serving as like a greatest hits sort of episode is the more interesting part of it for me, because it's like all of these movies that I might have heard of or I might have like on like my watch list somewhere, because I like to know a little bit about about movies before I watch them. So having these people to walk me through it sort of helps me get into the
Do you think that you have a little bit more of an interest in seeing these now that that's given you a primer on all of them?
I think so. And
that's
what
cool.
That's kind of
because I've seen kind of the bulk of this stuff, so I could walk through it pretty easy. I mean, like I've seen all those stuff that's like worth seeing, and I know backwards and forwards what happens in the ones that I even haven't seen, just because my dad just like is just a walking encyclopedia for this stuff.
Yeah, they should have interviewed him for this movie.
They should have. He actually probably would have had a lot of insight.
Because they didn't just interview people who were involved in it. They also interviewed like fans and like quote unquote influencers and like fan sites and YouTubers.
I have to ask, was James Rolfe interviewed for this? I knew it. I fucking knew it.
But they interviewed...
Because if there's anyone on YouTube who would know about that stuff, it's him.
They interviewed this one guy who's like a podcaster.
That's the angry video game nerd.
And I just hated his like, he had like that voice. You know that voice that like really like shitty YouTubers have, where they're like constantly overpronouncing every single vowel sort of vibe, you know? And he was like doing that like that sort of like. And he was like, I always skipped through his segments because they were the worst every single time. And it's like, yes, I wasn't there just to like find out like and he was just there to like give like plot summaries and like, oh, here's my favorite kill, and I'm like, I don't really care about the favorite kill.
You're not really like.
I'm like, I want to know about the movie and like its like importance in the genre. It's like kills, I don't care.
We don't know. We don't care about your specific opinion, Mr. He said it. He said the line.
You said what?
I did it.
William under his breath said, "I don't care."
It's a funny meme.
It's actually appropriate, is the thing.
No, because you're actually it's really David saying that about something.
But at least this time, I hope you can understand where I'm coming from.
No, absolutely.
I just thought it'd be funny to say it out of nowhere. See if like somebody would at least pick it up.
I'm gonna throw William under the bus. The other day, he made me laugh until I like almost couldn't breathe because he said, "You're the left-wing Ben Shapiro."
In my defense, I said that as a bit of a joke.
We're no longer friends.
I know you did. See, that's
like
the reason it made me laugh. Is because the first thing I said is he would hate you for saying that.
You can't quit from
You threw me under the bus, you son of a bitch.
And I did. I needed to make sure he hated you as much as I do.
I'm like checking the face cam.
Well, you see, my doctor wife has told me that it's normal that vaginas are not lubricated.
Of course.
My
It's
doctor
diseases.
wife would know. She is a doctor.
She told me herself.
I'm a man. I go to Home Depot to buy a single board of wood. Now this is epic.
I rub my dick in sandpaper. That gets me feels.
What does that have to do?
Turns out the
Talk
real
about
Ben Shapiro
torture.
was the friends
You
you made
wouldn't
along
even know
the
the
way.
meaning of that
If you know
yet.
what I mean, Mr. William.
So anyway,
I was
definitely
talking
wanna
over
watch
you and
that
you were talking over
documentary.
me, so I didn't
Yes.
get that. Could you repeat that?
No.
Well, we were talking over each other. I didn't hear what you said.
No.
What did he say again?
He said, no.
I said the real Ben Shapiro is the friends that we made along the way.
Oh, okay.
And then you said Mr.
I agree.
William. I wouldn't necessarily call them friends, but sure.
Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't call you
Co-workers?
friends anymore either.
Who you tolerate?
Acquaintances.
I would call it people that I hate.
I wouldn't call them Ben Shapiro. I would call them...
Hey, someone in the chat is asking if you could lower the game volume. I sneezed. Because it's a little loud.
Oh, thank God they couldn't hear a lot of the cringe. Or that just means that they couldn't hear a lot of the cringe that I've been saying. Oh boy. If somebody looks at those and in 10 years
William,
time, there's no way.
My life is a grand tapestry of cringe.
What were you gonna say?
Did you post cringe, William?
I posted
Lose
cringe
subscriber.
verbally. I lost subscriber. I am not an open-headed man, baby.
I recently actually posted cringe and loose subscriber.
Yeah? How many subscriber?
I wasn't paying attention to the number, but I know at least one. At least one person, and that bothered me.
At least one subscribers?
Okay, so there's this sponsor that I've had for a while who apparently a couple of other YouTube guys I know even vouch for them and say they're like legit. Like Panels to Pixels has done like a full like ad read for them for like this DVD ripper software, and they recently wanted me to make a community post where people can go like just sign up with their email and then vote in like this little poll thing and then possibly win a prize. But a lot of people were really concerned because of how shady and creepy looking the website looked, because it just kind of asks you to just put in your email without any kind of like acknowledgments or like rules about the contest, which seemed concerning. And so a lot of people thought I was promoting an email phishing scam. And I checked in with multiple people who've also like worked with that sponsor, if the website was like concerning for them too. And I even like started like trying to look through the terms and conditions. And it wasn't a shady evil thing. It wasn't an email phishing scam, but it looked enough like that people got really mad at me, and that sponsor was not paying me enough for me to deal with the ramifications of like that. So I just decided to drop it, and like I still feel bad though, because a lot of people were really pissed and sent me like some angry comments and messages, and some people were like, I'm unsubscribing over this, and this might not be legal.
Well, why am a YouTuber, am I right?
And I verified it was, but even still, I figure, you know what, if that sponsor's website is just going to continue to be so poorly designed that it looks suspicious and it's like reflecting poorly on me and getting me in trouble, then it's probably not worth the money, because they're not, that sponsor paid the least of any sponsor I've ever worked with.
There's something a little cringe about people coming to you about this and being like, oh my god, I'm unsubscribing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just figured.
Yeah. I'm just saying, people like coming to you about this and not the actual company. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do? Like, you're not gonna change it. I mean, sure,
they're
you
mad
can,
at me
stop
for posting
associating.
the link.
Okay, but I don't know. There's something a little cringe about that. I don't know what exactly.
Okay, so
Unable to articulate at this point.
They're everywhere. I can't hold them. Got to fall back.
yes.
Get me family out,
Yes.
and we'll regroup as soon as we can.
Dude, I've been watching a lot of Alien Isolation. I hate that game. I think it's a really like poorly designed game. But like, it's really interesting to just go like behind the scenes and see like
The joke has gone on so long that I actually don't know your real opinion of that game anymore.
like you keep referring to it as a joke, but you never really take me seriously when I say that. I feel like you're in denial.
You played it like you played the whole thing in almost one sitting, and then played the DLCs for it like 3
Played
times.
the whole thing in one sitting? Oh my god, you were not paying attention. I spent like over a week playing that.
It felt really fast.
It's like we got on call, you know, throughout that entire week as I'm playing it, because it was around that crazy. It was before that crazy time with the Alien and Predator video that you and Diego were doing.
Yeah.
We were actually in talks about that, and like
Okay, so I
pre-production
feel
was
like the
going on.
audio in the video is the audio right now is a little bit loud. Can anybody in the audience tell me if it's still a little bit high for you, or is it okay?
Yes. Is it fine? Is it clear? Is it okay? Is it epic? Is it August?
Big. Is it lay epic awesome sauce?
Is it lay epic? Oh my god, dude, we were talking about that. the other day.
Okay, this is epic.
Lay very lay epic.
Stop!
Lay, thank you, Ben Lay Shapiro. Lay, shut the fuck up.
Oh no! His fake family died! Oh wait, that's a spoiler.
What?
No CIA spook.
I don't care about this game.
Why have you
You
come
mean
here?
to tell me he was being dishonest the whole video game?
Uncover it?
Yeah, Alien Isolation's got a really like interesting pipeline and a really interesting design sort of thing happening in terms of like the behind the scenes shit. Again, I'm not a fan of the game, but just the behind the scenes process is just really interesting to look at.
Yeah, no, you only extensively research the behind the scenes process of games that you hate. Like Half-Life. You can't stand that series.
Yeah.
You know?
We
I
all
love
know
that series, but sometimes I do like research things that I dislike just to see how they fucked up, where they
Yeah, why did it turn
what-
out so terrible?
right. Yeah.
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 Why was it such a horrible
Where
mess
did they go wrong? What was the thought process that led them
to
led them down
this
that path?
horrific
Right,
accident?
right. Exactly. See, you did. But yeah, really interesting.
Oh,
really
I
interesting
forgot.
pipeline. Somebody disliked the stream.
Ain't that just?
Well,
It's
thanks.
kind of puggies.
I mean,
kinda puggies.
listen, I don't care. I don't care if you dislike this stream. It counts. The algorithm counts it as engagement, whether you dislike it or like it. So you're doing
Helped
me a
it get
favor
more.
either
You've
way.
helped it get more steam.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you
Like,
dislike
gave
a
it a
video and you want it to not do well because you dislike the video, it's probably more prudent to just not like it at all. Just like ignore it, because then it doesn't get. If you comment and say something mean, it just adds to the video's engagement. If you fucking if you dislike it, it's again, it's just something else, you know.
To the bathysphere.
So
If you really want a video to fail, just don't even talk about it. Just don't.
Oh.
Just ignore it entirely.
I wanted to mention there is one other movie that I watched recently. It's something that just dropped on Shudder, and it's called The Reckoning, directed by Neil Marshall and starring. Oh, and directed and written by Neil Marshall and starring a certain Charlotte Kirk.
A certain Charlotte, like there's more than one.
The Charlotte Kirk, I will say.
Who is
the
Charlotte
Charlotte
Kirk
Kirk
for
vibe.
those of the audience who don't know?
Okay, so
Did
Charlotte
she do
Kirk
anything memorable that almost blew up the film industry?
is a British actress who moved to moved to the LA in about 2012, 2013ish. I'm not sure exactly when, but between that time, she was involved with either romantically or otherwise. There's a bit of a question there, with at least 2 billionaires and 2 major Hollywood executives, including an Australian guy, strangely enough, and we have one of those on the stream. A guy called James Packer, if you've heard of him.
I have.
Somebody there!
Yeah, so so this woman was involved with these men for the purposes, either legally or either consensually or otherwise, to get film roles in various films. And she did end up getting a couple small roles in a couple of Warner Brothers movies. So she was involved with the chairman of Universal, a guy called Ron Meyer, and the CEO of Warner Brothers, Kevin Tsuchihara, before he was fired as well. And they're both gone now because of this. So it's a whole thing. It's really interesting. I'm kind of fascinated about all of this. But right now she is engaged or might be even married to Neil Marshall at this point. And they made a movie together called The Reckoning. And The Reckoning is a movie about a woman who is accused of witchcraft by her landlord after her husband is killed in the plague. And of course it's revealed in the movie in a very, very ham-fisted way that this same guy who was her landlord who wanted her the whole time also killed her husband intentionally by giving him the cup of a infested plague victim. So she's accused of witchcraft, and then she's tortured.
And people are saying that the game audio is still too loud.
Okay, I will turn that down immediately.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tough crowd, everybody's complaining about everything.
Hello.
Be grateful!
But yeah, and this woman, and then she stars as this woman who's like this beautiful woman who's accused of all these things. Then she's tortured, and then she eventually, so it's sort of an empowerment story, and she sort of becomes in her own, and like, eventually sort of rebels and takes advantage, and sort of has her little revenge. And that's the movie. And it's this really, it's like this whole question of like, how much is this representative of what this, like, the way this person sees her own experience, and like, what's going on here? And it was filmed like 2 years ago, and it's finally coming out. But also, you can imagine it's somewhat cathartic for the director, because before this movie, he made what was it? He made Hellboy. And
yeah, the Hellboy reboot.
The Hellboy reboot, and he's very clear about how the producers, there's a article about this in The Wrap, I think, where he talks about how the producers just walked all over him, and like they fired his cinematographer and they hired this other guy just to send a message to him, and then they just walked all over him, and like apparently the actor, like David Harbour, was also kind of a dick to him, and it was this whole process of it just not being his movie. And now he's sort of doing it again, and just sort of making it his own with this woman, and they can sort of, between the two of them, you can sort of see them both as like these outsiders into Hollywood, sort of reclaiming their artistic sort of sense of self.
Yes.
Really
I saw the Hellboy reboot.
Yeah?
It was rough, man. Because,
I
okay,
didn't see it.
Hellboy, the comic, is like a really heady detective story. It's like just a paranormal investigator who's like really intelligent and like thoughtful, but he also is a demon and has superpowers, right? And the movie is like, let's have the tone of Deadpool and make this character like an obnoxious, loudmouth piece of shit who's constantly screaming and flailing around and acting like an asshole. Like, it's baffling. And there just like there's some like kind of somewhat cool action sequences, but they run on for so long and are just so like elaborate and over the top, and just like take up so much of the running time that it's like you almost start to kind of get bored by them.
I'll although I will
it was
say,
weird.
yeah, that's interesting because this movie, The Reckoning, has almost no action until the end of the movie, basically. And it's
Okay,
all about the
okay.
sort of psychological consequences for this woman of being sort of put into this pedestal and sort of made into this figure because of being a woman and other people sort of wanting things out of her.
Right.
And then at the end, it's her reclaiming who she is, and just
It's turkey sandwiches, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
The movie is everyone, and the people behind the camera need to work out some stuff about how annoyed they are with the process lately, and so they're gonna do it via an elaborate metaphor.
yeah, because I listened to a podcast about the movie, and what this person said, what they themselves said about the movie, is that they had this other person because there's 3 credited screenwriters, Charlotte Kirk, Neil Marshall, and this other guy. This other guy came up with the original idea of, oh, let's have this movie about this person being tried as a witch, but in the end she's a witch and she kills them all. But then her idea was, what if she's not a witch at all and she's just completely innocent? And then, you know, given that she plays the role herself, is it productive to see her as that character? I mean, I feel
Like, are you trying to say something about with all the controversy that happened when? Because again, you kind of tiptoed around it, but basically, what she was sleeping with a couple of directors and/or producers.
Not she. So she was involved romantically with at least 2 different directors who were supposed to make movies with her. Neil Marshall and this other guy. And
it kind of came across as it was a way she was getting
2 billionaires
she was getting bold.
and two Hollywood executives. So
4 guys?
Yes. So the crux of this is this moment
Where do you find the time for that? I'm not like slut shaming. Like, if you want to have 4 boyfriends, that's cool. I'm
not
just
at
more
the same
impressed
time,
by
not
like
at the same time.
how do. Oh, okay. I was just thinking, like, how do you schedule
So the crux
that?
of this is this. I'm just staring at this floating shovel right now. But so the crux of it is that. James Packer is this billionaire who wanted to invest in Warner Brothers movies, and he did that teamed up with Brett Ratner, who is a Hollywood director who is also accused of sexual harassment. But we don't have time to talk about that right now because. So they signed the deal with Warner Brothers, and they claim that they'd already signed the deal before this meeting happened. But Charlotte Kirk claims that she was used as sort of this, as the icing on the cake to seal the deal between Kevin Tsuchihara and Brett Ratner and James Packer, where she was brought to this hotel in West Hollywood and had sex with Kevin Tsuchihara under, as she claims, dubious circumstances. Which is yikes.
Oof.
Yeah, it's this whole thing. It's like I'm surprised that nobody's talking about it because it's so wild. Like, this one person is like responsible. I mean, not directly responsible because these men are obviously, they're adults. They can make their own decisions. But she sort of brings about the downfall of multiple studio executives who are like well respected within the industry and at the top of their game. It's like absolutely fascinating that this sort of thing happens.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, but then there's this movie that you can see either directly or indirectly as a representation of this. And to be honest, the movie itself, I think, is a little bit underwhelming. There's some interesting stuff in there, and I won't say it's completely without merit, but I think that the framing and the structure of the story doesn't do its own ideas justice.
Huh.
Because it's sort of it needs to focus up a little bit more on what it wants to do and what it wants to be. And the central idea that they like talk about is like that could work in a story about you know, this woman and the way that she empowers herself because of being in this situation. That's interesting, and that could be a good story, but it's not structured in a way that does justice to it, because it starts with this long scene where she's mourning her husband, and then it jumps back to tell how he dies, and then after all of this, like, I think easily like 45 to 50 minutes into like a 2 hour plus movie is when she finally gets accused of a witch. And if you're making a story about a woman who's, you know, imprisoned as a witchcraft, I would start with her in the cell.
Yeah, because that's the
And
interesting
then-
stuff.
And then sort of
Like, work
flash
your way
back
backwards.
and fill in the details, and then keep going on. Although I do think one thing that I did want to really compliment it for is that it doesn't get really exploitative with the violence.
Torture.
Because there's torture, but it doesn't actually show a lot of the torture. You see the build up and you see the aftermath, and then a lot of the movie is her sort of psychologically dealing with it in the cell, and that's kind of the more interesting part of it, in my opinion.
You guys heard of the Joan of Arc movie from the 20s?
The what?
I've
The
heard of
Joan
it.
of Arc movie.
No, I haven't.
There's a Joan of Arc movie from the 20s. I think it was filmed in like France or something.
Yeah.
But I've watched it twice for different classes in film school. Just because they want us to really pay it, because it's a silent film,
Yeah.
and they really wanted us to get used to like looking at you know, just visual storytelling.
Uh-huh.
And I'm always fascinated by the story of this movie, because apparently they thought the film was destroyed in a fire in when kind of near when they were supposed to release it. There was like a warehouse that burned down and they lost the print of the film. But then someone else, like 70 or 80 years later, found a bunch of alternate footage and alternate takes that were all totally usable in a closet in a mental asylum in like Switzerland.
So then they.
And then-
So then they.
They just like
Mhm.
put it together based on kind of what was described by the director in his old diaries, and just
Okay.
like released it. So it's lost media that was found.
That is interesting.
But the movie, it's kind of like the precursor to that shit with The Shining, you know, with Shelley Duvall, where the director just like psychologically tortured her to make her look as fucking tired and sad and stressed out and just ruined as possible, so it's like believable.
Yeah.
And this movie did that to the lady who played Joan of Arc, and it comes across in the footage that she is just emotionally devastated by the end of it.
Okay, so I have one criticism here of this game, just as I was playing it. If
Even
you
in the
allow me
gathering
to
dark, you like the
change
temple.
for a second.
You have saved the little
Is
ones
that
when you might have
You
shown your
have to
fruit.
fight,
I'm
or at least
sending something your way.
the big
Demonstrate
daddies are
our
always
respect.
enemies, and I don't like that. I think like maybe they could learn to see you as allies and like not.
Or maybe just have them be optional, where they're kind of walking around doing their own thing,
yeah.
and you have the choice to fight them.
Mm-hmm. That would be better, I think. Because here you just have to fight them, and like it doesn't allow you much variety in terms of the type of choices you're allowed to make here, because you can't really make any choices in terms of doing different combat styles. And I don't like
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah? Well, maybe the video game doesn't like you too. The band, U2.
Enrage your enemies.
Yes,
Bastards
I
are
don't like
enemies
U2.
of
It's not a
each
very
other.
good band.
Man,
I'm watching
fuck you
AVP
two.
movie clips.
Hey, I hate you two. You two are assholes.
Hell yeah.
You're not wrong.
You two are the worst people I've ever met.
Yeah.
You
right?
two
Not
can
wrong.
frankly go fuck yourselves.
I mean, if you want me
Yeah.
to, I'll just
Oh,
have to do that after we finish streaming.
Anna's
Okay,
watching.
right. Okay, but the movie has some really cool scenes. I like that movie.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I like it.
What movie?
I mean, it's not like great, the AVP movie. The first one, not the terrible second one.
The terrible second one is like way better, I think.
Shut the hell. Don't even.
On the surface,
The terrible second one is the worst. Don't. You know what? I can stand your joke of not liking Alien Isolation. That's fine. Don't you dare joke about liking fucking AVP Requiem, because that's too far. That's not funny. That's wrong.
Alien Isolation.
I burnt it to the ground.
I'll play by your rules.
God did not plant the seed.
That's wrong.
He never fucking stops. He's always doing it.
Doing what?
Always. He's always doing this fucking bit.
What bit? What are you talking? I don't like how you don't take me seriously, and frankly, I think you should stop. Okay? This is a thing of respect,
Anyway.
okay? And I feel like you're not showing me enough respect to see my opinion as it is. You fuck.
You know what I think of your opinion?
No,
That wasn't rhetorical. I was actually asking.
oh yeah, no, I don't.
Are you enjoying My Name is Earl?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It's a good show.
I like how it kind of like on the surface, it's like, oh, this is like a kid's show. Oh, this guy's like trying to do a good car. It's not a kid's show. It absolutely is not a kid's show. There is some like a lot of shit that they show, that they say, that they like hint at and reference that isn't. This is not a kid's show. It looks like that on the surface because it's got like such a kid-friendly sort of tone going on, like, you know. Just the first time you're watching it, it's like, oh look, it's this and this isn't like a realistic take on the world. It's like, you know, it's not a thing for adults because it's not serious, but it's not a kid's show. It's like, it's not a kid's show. It is.
It's interesting because it's like it has like a very lighthearted, like kind of joyful tone.
That's it. That's
And
it. Yeah.
it's weird how you like a lot of media has conditioned us to associate that with children's entertainment, as if though like having a not bleak and cynical outlook is like for children. But the show is very much full of adult content. It's just that it's just played really like lighthearted and fun, you know? Like there's some really dirty like fucking jokes in there. But it's just like the show is so wholesome and just so like friendly. Like the characters, even the meanest, like most asshole character is still really nice. Like sometimes, and just like kind of has to, like it's like a front she puts on. Like and she's kind of like the main villain of the show, but even she is like not a bad person.
And I see what I was confused the first time you said that. I'm like, how the? Because in the early episodes, she was trying to kill him for his money. Because he won like this lottery ticket for like $100,000, and she was like, I want that money.
And
she's
she's his ex-wife.
Yeah, and she divorced him like just before he won the thing, and now she's like, oh, this is not fair. I deserve like half of that, and he refused to give it to her. So she found like a tape that he recorded once. Where it's like, if I die, everything I own is now hers, and she's like, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna show that tape to like the court, and I'm gonna get his money. So like when he told me that as that was happening, like he's like she's like an asshole, but she's got a heart of gold. I'm like, I have a hard time seeing that, because she was like actively trying to like find ways to just like slaughter him.
My tree.
She like shoots an arrow next to his head while he's
He
like having a
shoots
smoke
like 3
break.
arrows at
So
him.
what
2
show
of them
is
miss.
this
1 of them was
again?
gonna hit him, but he moved out of
Can
the
you
way.
explain?
This is My Name is Earl.
My name's
I've never watched
Okay,
the show.
so the premise is that it's about this hillbilly petty criminal, this guy from just like the boonies who has just made his entire living off just stealing things and screwing people over and acting like a complete scumbag. And like so far everything goes kind of good for him. Then one day he wins the lottery and is like, wow, my life can't get any better. And as he's celebrating his lottery win, he gets run over by a car. And then while he's in traction in the hospital, his wife divorces him for the man that she's been cheating on him with for years. And he loses the lottery ticket. He basically, in just like the span of like an hour, loses everything that he has. And he's like, well, why? What did I do to deserve this? And then he sees some kind of like Carson Daly thing on TV where he's talking about the concept of karma. And so he like really takes that to heart and thinks that puts it together that maybe the reason his life sucks so bad and everything goes so poorly for him is just because he's not a great guy. So he makes a list of every bad thing he's ever done, and every episode is him trying to, in his entire life, and every episode is him trying to undo a bad thing he did, like going back, retracing his steps, and finding some kind of horrible mistake he's made, and then trying to like make amends for that. And it's like a really wholesome, kind of like kind-hearted show. There's no cynicism about it at all, even though the characters are like hookers and criminals and thieves and drug dealers, but everyone is so like kind of nice, and just the tone of the show is so like lighthearted and happy. And it's just such a weird juxtaposition, and it's just so like fun, and like it's such a feel-good show, and I really love it. And I just started showing it to William recently, and now he's loving it.
I've been watching it like I've been watching it as a month.
Maybe you should start watching
Put that thing in the
Babylon 5
background.
then.
I just put that thing in the background, and I listen to it as I'm working, and I watch it, and it's fun. It's really fun.
So,
Jean Favreau was in one of the episodes.
Oh yeah, does he play like the asshole like store man, or like he's like the manager, like a fast food place.
restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like a complete scumbag whose life is great, and it makes the main character question if all the karma stuff is real. And he's like, well, if I
He's
punch
like, why
his
the fuck
life out,
isn't he getting anything?
and he's like, I gotta let karma take care of this guy, because if I punch him, then it's like, nah, you know,
It's bad
I'm
karma
not
for
letting.
me.
It's bad karma for me. And then eventually he loses it and punches him, and then the guy's like, his mistress and his wife meet in the hospital, and he loses his job, and like all kinds of stuff starts going. Yeah, and he's like, oh, karma used my fist to punch that guy so that his life would turn to shit. I was the tool of karma.
I was Carmen's bitch.
Cool show. I'm sad that it eventually gets canceled. At like, it had 4 seasons and like over 100 episodes, which is still really impressive. But I can't even remember why it got canceled. But the nice thing is that the cast are all really good friends with the creator, Greg Garcia, so they're always showing up in his other projects. So his follow-up show, Raising Hope, which lasted like 5 seasons, actually has a My Name is Earl reunion episode in it, where all of the people who are characters in My Name is Earl show up as other characters in that, but then start kind of reenacting the plot of My Name is Earl. And it's really funny.
wow.
In that one episode?
Yeah, in that one episode.
So recently, another thing that I watched was that I rewatched. So there's a bunch of like Babylon 5 TV movies. So Babylon 5 is like a science fiction show in the 90s, and I recently got like a DVD copy of the Babylon 5 TV movies. So I went and watched those again. And there's one that I really like called Third Space. It's like a TV movie of this like Star Trek like science fiction show, right? But there's this one episode, there's this TV movie, it's like, oh, and by the way, this other thing happened, like, in the middle of everything else. And it's just like this, like, Lovecraftian-inspired horror story just in the middle of something that's just completely different. And I really like
cool.
it. It's super cool.
Oh, yeah.
And it's written by JMS, who is a badass.
JMS is a legend indeed.
Yeah, so basically what happens is that, like, they're having, like, a normal mission, but then they discover along the way, they, like, discover this, this giant, like, mile-long ship just in the middle of hyperspace and nowhere. And it's like, they investigate the mystery of why it happened, and of course everybody wants peace, and blah blah blah. And it's super cool because, like, everybody starts going crazy because of the influence of this and blah blah blah. It's actually a lot of fun. You start having,
Is it
like
like Event Horizon but good?
It's got shades of that, except it's PG-13, so it doesn't have quite. My one criticism is that it doesn't go quite as far as I would like with the Lovecraftian stuff in it. But it does
You gotta
make me
like
think
kind of
that,
watch it for that, keeping that rating.
yeah, I really, because it's a TV movie, so you have to broadcast standards and all that. But I do really think, because of that I really want, like, a Lovecraftian sci-fi movie set in space. I don't think we've quite gotten that yet.
I feel like Dead Space is what you're looking for, but we gotta play the rest of it.
Well, Dead Space is a little bit... I mean, I haven't played it, so there's that. I haven't finished it. But I mean, I guess you could see that. It's not my thing, so...
Yeah, there's some stuff that starts to get into that territory with, like elder ancient alien beings that are beyond the comprehension of mere mortals and are using humans as vessels for evil shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's your main thing.
And I'm disappointed. I think that's the appeal because of Event Horizon. Because Event Horizon isn't a good movie, but it gets as close as you'll get to that. I think that the other one is that the other one was that gets close that has shades of that is Alien.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, they could have done that in Prometheus, but then in Alien Covenant they kill
In
off the
Prometheus,
other
they
guys.
are like, hey, let's lower the scope and like take these like elder beings that are smarter than us and just blow them up.
Yeah.
Prometheus isn't very epic.
It wasn't very lay epic sauce.
It wasn't very lay epic. It was lay very cringe.
It was big cringe.
Big crane.
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 It reminds me of Krang from the Ninja Turtles.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm sorry, I'm always thinking about Ninja Turtles at every moment of the day. Everything I look at, I'm just like, that reminds me of this episode.
That reminds me. That reminds me.
It's like
Morty.
me in Star Trek.
Ninja Turtle.
What's the point of being a damn
Stop it.
genius if the only ones
Get some
around
help.
to appreciate it are a
Lay,
bunch
shut
of
the fuck up.
spliced up
Oh
morons?
my god.
Cracked the
Oh
vector.
my
Well, at
god.
least I'm 99%
Although I will
certain
say-
Oh
I
my
just
god.
need the blood of Rosa
Lay,
Gallica
stop.
to confirm
I was
my
gonna
analysis.
say though, the one thing that did disappoint me
And
is
enzymes
that
extracted from
I
Alice
watched
mellifera. That's right, sweetheart.
What was I
Honeybee
thinking?
spit.
I started watching on YouTube the Mike and Jay
Review? Oh, you mean are you talking about the trivia thing for Star Trek?
No, Mike and Jay their favorite Star Trek episodes. And I just watched
Oh, you
that
mean
and I
Mike and Rick.
realized that it's
They
kind
doesn't
of
care about
depressing
that.
how they I don't like their Star Trek opinions.
Aww.
And I think that they don't view the show in a... It's that sort of more fanboy view of the show. And they're like... It's just wrong. It's wrong. I don't like it.
I feel like they can kind of be a little bit like Puritan about Star Trek. Like it has to be exactly the same way every single time you see it, with no deviations.
And they also do the thing that I don't like that they did when reviewing The Last Jedi and some of the Star Wars movies, is that they're overly literal, and they're not like looking at it for beyond like a straightforward perspective.
I think they're like they've become accustomed to looking at Star Wars as like not very literal, but Star Trek extremely literally.
Yeah.
You know, because Star Wars is fantasy with no science to it, no logic really. It's just whatever.
It works when you do that with the Star Wars prequels because there's no narrative logic in that movie whatsoever. But when you're talking about like the TV show, there's different goals, and you're like. Maybe I'm just being overly nostalgic here, and I'm not allowing myself to view this in a more critical lens. But I just don't think that their way of
that's a possibility too.
Viewing the movies, it rubbed me the wrong way, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I guess I understand that. I feel like I tend to avoid videos that they do on stuff that I have an attachment to or that I like because I'm. Even if I agree with them, I'm just worried that they're gonna say one or two offhanded things that'll bother me. Like, Mike has really, and I understand that a lot of this might just be for comedy's sake, but he's really put down comic books as just like a stupid, like, dumb thing for babies and not a legitimate medium.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he doesn't know that comic books are more than just like Superman and Batman. You know, and that there's like other good stories, you know, told through that medium.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just sees because he just like dismisses them as like, you know, just cartoon stories for babies. And it's like, well, come on, man. There's more to it than
Sometimes they can be.
So absolutely. In fact, that's exactly what like a lot of Marvel and DC stuff is because it's just got to be lighthearted and for the childrens. You know, we can't do anything too risky or else we'll alienate that audience. But like I feel like that carries over to like all comic book stuff with him, you know?
Yeah. No, there's a line, there's a threshold between when it you know dominates and governs that sort of we need to like let it be for the kids because Spider-Man, right? But there's also like a line where it goes, no, this is like not
it's
anything.
Like I guess one of the most famous examples now is like Invincible. It's just like
and The Boys.
What are you talking about? Invincible's for kids.
Invincible. You know what?
Story I've ever seen.
I fucking love just telling people Invincible is a fucking kid-friendly, happy-friendly superhero story, and just letting them watch that first episode. Like, yeah, okay, I can get with this, and then like. And then
the end credit scene.
And then the end credit scene, and then just hearing the reactions after that.
I love doing that too.
I went into it knowing to expect that sort of thing.
Okay,
that
so
was
I'm
the
gonna
best
say
thing about that comic is that there were so many ways because you could always just recommend it to people like offhandedly, like, oh yeah, it's a superhero comic. And the first 6 issues are really happy-go-lucky and kid-friendly and like lighthearted, and then issue 6. Just some stuff happens, and just hearing that reaction every time is like the fucking funniest experience.
Well, I'm going to say I'm going to have a hot take for you guys here, which is I understand where you're going from this, but I think there's another story that does it better.
Which one?
I'm going to say this, and this is going to be my unwashed masses, non-movie opinion version.
Okay.
Non-comic book reader opinion, okay? So this is very much filtered through that lens. right? Okay, are you ready?
Go on. Yes.
Yeah, really.
Hit me with it, boy.
Hit me with your best shot.
Yes.
Logan did it better.
Logan?
Logan.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know.
The movie,
I
not the comic book, because I'm not familiar with the specific I'm not conventions of the cartoon, so I can't talk about it from that perspective. But I think that Logan does a much better job of taking like, oh, it's a fun superhero story, but then like introducing that real world stuff to it in a lot more of a graceful way.
I don't know. It kind of starts off real world and bitter, and then just like goes from there. Like it doesn't have like a fun, happy like. It doesn't have any kind of contrast. It just
No.
starts
It
at
absolutely
fucking...
does. It absolutely does.
Where? When?
I will tell you exactly where. It's the scene where they're killed, where Professor X dies. Like that specific scene where the evil Logan happens.
Everything before that was still pretty fucking raw, dude. Like,
Yeah.
there's like fucking... No.
I agree
No,
with that,
completely-
but I still think it's true. I've watched
I
that
mean,
like
sure, that was a big shift in that movie, but like everyone knew going into that movie from the very opening of it that it was going to be darker and like
yeah,
you know,
but they didn't.
more serious.
But here's the thing. Here's what that
It
movie
doesn't
does.
catch you
is
off
it-
guard at all with
No,
like
no,
a
no,
tone
no, no,
shift.
no, no,
It
no,
just
no,
catches
no,
you
no,
off guard with...
no.
Okay, well that's mature. That's all right.
What I'm trying to finish what I'm going to say is because it's like, okay, it's gonna be violent, there's gonna be blood, it sort of lures you in with that, but then it sort of hits you with that next level of just, this is how it's gonna be, you know? Where it doesn't just hit you with like, you first you're just like, okay, this is what the story's gonna be like, but I can live with it. And then when like those characters die, it's just that other level of, oh, nothing's safe. Like I've watched that specific moment with multiple people who are like, you don't know what's happening, and they're just like, oh no, whoa, because it's just sort of that moment where it sort of pulls out the rug completely from under you. And I stand by that. I'm probably wrong, but I don't care.
Okay. I don't think it, I just think that, like, the tone of the first half of the movie and the tone from the second half of the movie from that scene onward are very, like, cohesive, and it doesn't really have any kind of, like... It's surprising as, like a from a narrative standpoint, because you don't really expect it that much.
I do agree that it's cohesive, but I still stand.
But I don't know. I feel like that it's not as big of a like big shocker. Like, whoa, that happens, like, because you already know that, like, the movie is already started at like just a very bitter, angry place where like Logan is like stabbing random people in the head in bar fights, and like fucking it's really brutal and over the top.
No.
Like,
no. Not really.
The fight scene where those guys like are like those drunk guys are beating on him, and then he just puts his claws through like one of their fucking heads, and it goes up through his mouth.
Here's the thing, is that up to that point, you don't really see the consequence of violence in people that you get to know. Because functionally, there's no real difference between Logan stabbing a guy through the chest in X-Men 2 and Logan stabbing somebody through the head here, with the exception that you see the
just
blood.
more gore. Yeah.
Before that moment, you never think that, like, oh, this character that I know and that I love he can get hurt too.
Yeah, like, it's really surprising when Professor X is randomly disintegrated by Jean Grey. Fucking 15 years prior.
That's a stupid example.
No, a major character dies!
But not like
The same
that.
major character!
Yeah, but in that very PG-13 superhero kind of way. And you don't.
Blown to pieces?
And
Guys.
at the end of that movie, in the end credits scene, he's brought back. That doesn't happen at the end of Logan.
Yeah, but still. What, huh?
Gamers can finally touch grass.
Yes.
What, huh? What?
The Horizon Forbidden West will let players feel the grass through DualSense haptic controls.
Oh, good. Because I've never touched grass before.
That's fucking dumb.
This is how you guys are much more touch grass.
Both
to
of
you.
us need to, considering this conversation.
I mean, I wasn't talking to like you guys. It's a sudden shit.
No, you're right. This whole thing's
Okay, but like, I
embarrassing.
wasn't talking about that. That is something that you that you said. Those are your words, not mine. Yeah.
My words
So I've
and
been
not
watching-
yours.
The Bad Batch. And I have to say,
Oh,
Bradley
yeah.
Baker's vocal range is so fucking impressive that he plays every character in the show, and yet all of their voices are still distinct somehow.
I was watching episode 1 with my friends the other week. That was nice.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, it
like
was
it.
okay. I wasn't too into it.
It's not like something I'm like super duper into, because I just like by and large don't really care about Star Wars for the most
Yeah.
part. But I was quite enjoying how small scale that story seems, just because it was like so focused on just this tiny little ragtag crew of characters, and not giant galactic death machines. And I appreciate all the stuff on Disney Plus for Star Wars is such a departure from the movies, in that they just have like small scopes of stories and characters that are like likable, you know, who have like arcs, and like there's just actual kind of world building instead of just doing the same movies you've seen over and over again.
Yeah.
I would be okay if we never saw another character named Skywalker ever again. I'm so tired of it.
So I will say
I
here that I
want
have
him
a
to die.
slightly different reaction to these Disney Plus shows than you do. And that's probably because I've consumed a lot more expanded universe stuff than you have. But it just feels like more of that. So I already know what they're going
You're already
for.
kind of burned out on it, and I get that totally.
I feel like I've read all this stuff already.
The only expanded universe stuff I've ever really like seen is the fucking Force Unleashed video game, which is like gameplay wise is fine, but like story wise it's not very good because it's bad fan fiction. Here's this ultra important character you've never heard of, but he did all kinds of cool stuff, and he was so strong and powerful that he could beat up all these named characters from the series.
Honestly, that's most of what the expanded universe is.
It's just, here's this character you've never heard of who's the best at everything. What are you humming there? What's that?
Fucking Star
What you got
Wars.
there? Oh. That didn't sound like that at all. You went da 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 da.
That's not true. I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's how you went.
You're
That's
delusional.
what you did.
Fuck.
Fucking you.
I'll beat
Yeah,
you
own
up.
up to it. Own up to your fucking mistake,
I'll
man.
fucking punch you in the face so hard your teeth will fall out.
And this is
You'll
why I
swallow
don't
them.
have friends.
It's because you just try to hum songs and then they beat you violently.
Yes, that's
I'm the one
exactly what I
humming
was trying to
songs,
say. Right?
and I'm the one credited. It's not the other way.
I am the one, the one, the one!
I am the one, don't need a gun to put respect on the street. Remember when that was in like every Vine video ever?
I didn't ever watch Vine, so I don't.
I
remember
used to love
I
watching Vine.
I didn't have Vine itself, but I would partake in Vine compilations just to see like
on YouTube,
what kind
yeah,
of-
yeah.
yeah.
I'm the same.
And there was a couple of like really creative ones with really interesting editing where someone would just like, you know, just like make like almost like a video art piece, like this one where a guy is like walking through a hallway and then like starts painting a door on a wall and then walks through it and then it loops, and it was really trippy. It was like
what's
Looney
his
Tunes
name?
logic.
I know who you're talking about. He was on Card Digital one time.
So like yeah, like stuff like that. There was, or just like there was this one video of a guy. He would just do like magic tricks during his vines, like just with like really crazy editing. Like he would throw a pile of clothes at someone, and then with a jump cut, it would just like be on them, and it looked really good. So there, yeah, just like cool little clever things like that. That stuff was you know.
No, I would watch everything. The lame stuff, the funny stuff, the clever stuff, just everything. And I would find a lot of humor and entertainment value to them. I was a kid,
Yeah.
so keep that in mind, but I used to love watching
You're telling me that you were young at one point? I don't believe you. I don't believe. You were
Oh
ever a young
shit,
person.
you weren't meant to know. You weren't meant to know that. Whoops. But yeah, TikTok is now the new Vine, so enjoy.
Do you tick and do you talk?
Why do you words? Why do you speak?
Why do
I
you
just-
do this?
I just spoke so much cringe that my vocal cords tried to choke me.
That's the struggle.
Interesting. Interesting.
You ever have that moment where you say something so stupid that your internal organs reach up to choke the rest of your throat so that you can stop, so that you'll stop saying it? Because that's happened to
just
me
you.
several times.
I think that's just you.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
You sounded different when you said really.
Really?
Oh, I'm playing. By the way, as we're doing this,
Yes?
I've been playing Resident Evil 2, the second scenario for the remake, which is basically it's the same game again, but the story is slightly different. It's like a new game plus. The story is different, the boss fights are different, and even the puzzles have been remixed. And I just kind of like, because I played the main version of this game so many times, I walked up and just like on autopilot just did this really complicated puzzle. Like I put all these different plugs into these sockets to power up a generator, like because I knew the hint for the puzzle so easily. But then it wasn't working, and I was like, I couldn't have gotten it wrong. I just did this the other day. I looked at it, and the puzzle is different now. It has a different hint. And it's actually way more fucking confusing and obtuse this time. So now I have to figure it out.
So now you actually have to think.
Yeah, because I normally just like,
That's
I figured this puzzle out like the second playthrough I've done, and this is like my 7th or 8th. But now that everything's different on the second scenario, so the puzzle has different rules. And now I'm all fucking confused, because I'm still remembering the regular way to do it.
Wow. What a hoggers thing to do.
The rook's next to the knight, but not facing the queen. The king isn't next to the queen, but facing the knight.
I'll bet you're missing some Bioshock hacking puzzles right now.
Yeah. The knight is not where the case marking says. Ah, for fuck's sake. So there's There's a deceptive label.
You're deceptive.
Shit.
How long are we gonna be streaming for? Because I was talking to a friend yesterday.